Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Aquarius, Sun, Moon and Ascendant for the month of March 2024. I hope you are well. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, you can access an extended, which will be available at the end. That's the first link in the description box. Second link in the description box is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost over the membership fee. And hang out with an extraordinary group of people. We've got all sorts of things going on over there. So if that's something that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. Now, Aquarius, let's have a look and see what is going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Aquarius, please? Thank you. First card is the Two of Cups. That's your recent past. What about current energy for Aquarius? Oh, goodness. We've got the Fool in reverse. Don't panic about that, because I think that my pre-reading meditation might go some way to explain that. And what's coming towards Aquarius for March, please? Oh, goodness me. We have 3. We have the Four of Cups. We have the Knight of Swords. And we have the 3 of Cups. With, there you are, King of Swords at the bottom of the deck. So, I'm going to use this deck here to clarify, actually. So, there's no doubt that things of an emotional nature are highlighted this month, but I think it's in terms of balance. When I say this month, I mean you've been kind of in the soup of it for a while, Aquarius, with this Two of Cups down here. It's about achieving the balance between the two. We've no doubt at all that you've got the mental stuff down. It's right there. But let me get these clarifiers out, and then we'll have a little chat about what this is all about. So tell me about the Two of Cups, please. There you are again. King of Swords. Whoa. And we've got the Ten of Swords in reverse down there. Tell me about this Fool reverse, please. Thank you. We have the King of Pentacles and we have the Six of Wands, indeed. Tell me about these 3 cards here for March. We've got... Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I open them the right way. Sun in reverse, the Nine of Wands in reverse, and the Five of Wands, which is on the turn. Right, let me put these where you can see them. As ever, Aquarius, you're a little bit complex, so we need to make a bit of space for what we're going to talk about here. And the first thing to know, or the first thing to note, speaking of balance, here we've got the Two of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, is that there's nothing here that suggests that you are stuck, although you may feel slightly like you are stuck. What you're experiencing are the kind of, birthing pains, for the want of a better word, like the chick that's trying to work out how to get out of the egg, or the snake that's experiencing its first proper slough. What we've got going on here is a kind of complex tangle that you are trying to emerge from. And emerge you shall, but not, I think, without a little bit of frustration that's going to cause you to kind of bring in all of the pieces rather than just the ones that you want to. And I'll explain what that means there, right? So obviously we have quite an emphasis on the emotional because the main cards here are, mostly water. And they're revolving around essentially you and other people, the relationship that you have with other people. If we start over here, we have the Two of Cups, and that is your closest, most intimate relationship. So they don't have to be the ones that are purely, right, on a sexual level, right, with your spouse or your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, all those kind of things. They can speak about business partnerships. They can talk about friendships. They can talk about familial relations that you have with people. But when you really dig down into this card, what it's about is intimacy. It's about exposure. It's allowing yourself to align with other people, and that's something that I don't think is necessarily terribly comfortable for Aquarius to do, because the alien archetype is one that belongs to Aquarius, and for good reason. You are the outsider. I was actually talking yesterday to a client about the Leo Aquarius axis, and I must credit Tarot by Bronx for her breakdown of this. I saw it on Instagram a few months ago, and it absolutely nailed it. Both Aquarius and Leo, in their own respective ways, draw attention to themselves. If you could envisage the entire zodiac standing in a circle facing in, Leo is going to step into the middle because it's the sun, right? It's the middle of everything. And as such, it tends to represent the orthodoxy. The Aquarius archetype, however, is the one that goes, I'm most comfortable at the furthest point from the sun, and so I'm going to take myself over here. I'm going to go do something else, right? It's associated with innovation and experimentation and like really kind of expansive breaking through. I'm certainly breaking away. And we've talked about this quite a lot, Aquarius. You understand what you are, but there is something inherently contrarian, I guess, about Aquarius, and it's because you're always looking for the new, for the expansive, for the innovative, for all these kind of things, right? That doesn't necessarily gel terribly well with having deep and meaningful relationships with other people, and it's possible that this is where the idea of Aquarius being quite detached comes from, right? We see it in the King of Swords in this one here particularly, because we've got a heart in a cage there, right? And the idea is that Aquarius has the ability to be able to put their emotions and emotional considerations to one side and deal purely in facts and logic and reason and stuff like that. But in order for you to progress and for you to grow in a balanced way, in a holistic way, given the times that we are in, it's like what is being asked of you now is that you open up and you really show everyone what is going on inside there. Now, we're going to skip past traumas and things like that, things that may have caused you to detach because at earlier stages in your life you were shown that being emotional was not a useful thing in the situation that you were in. And we're going to focus more on the future because I've had this feeling like this kind of dredging that we've all been doing for the last 4 years is falling by the wayside now, and it is very much about moving forwards, expanding, growing, those kind of things, right? Which is not to dismiss what people have going on, but there's a recognition that these things need to be processed more on the fly now because things are speeding up and big changes are already here, but there are definitely some of them on the horizon. But part of the Aquarius archetype is also it's inherently contradictory, right? Because we've got a prizing of individuality, but also a deep and abiding love for the collective, for humanity as a whole. The thing is, you seem to need to be able to engage with that love of humanity as a whole with individual people. And I think that this might have been a little bit challenging for you, certainly in the recent past, right? Because there are emotions inside you. It's not that you're a robot, it's that you process them differently. And it's not that you need to dumb yourself down for people to understand. It's that you need to find a way to allow people to connect with you in a way that moves past where you are intellectually, rationally, all these kind of things, and where other people are. It's like finding that point where you can all connect, and that's going to be in the emotional space. I'm not talking about, the weaponization of emotional topics, such as we see quite a lot of at the moment. I'm talking about something that is sitting very pure in the center of you. King of Swords there, indicating you, but this Ten of Swords is quite interesting because were it that way around, we might go off on an entirely different tangent about maybe how some relationships are breaking down because it's time, but the swords really, each one of the swords represents trains of thought, right, and ways in which we kind of clart up our own minds by getting stuck, right? The Nine of Swords is overthinking. It is it's anxiety. It's a deep-rooted fear that comes from, I don't know, fear of the unknown, not something that particularly plagues Aquarius, but kind of thinking yourself up into a knot. And we arrive at the 10 and it's like, this is an end now. This is completing. You don't have to think about this that much anymore. It's time to give yourself mental relief. And from there, we move to the Ace of Swords. And the Ace is really the only sword that is required, isn't it? The King of Swords holds it, as do all the members of the court hierarchy of the suit of swords, right? That one sword, the truth, clarity, all that sort of thing, represented and held within that one sword. Anything more than that is an overabundance and a representation of difficult lessons that have been learned by you. We notice that he's got his head turned towards the dawn because hope springs eternal and all that kind of thing. But for you, it's in the reverse. And it suggests a tension around the idea of how it is that you connect with people more now. Now, I've spoken to quite a lot of Aquariuses in the last few weeks, and that sense of trying to break out is really, really strong. But there's also an awful lot of mental energy into trying to work out what that actually looks like. And I would posit to you that the issue is more one of surrender than it is incisive thinking at this point. And I know that that's going to be quite controversial for some Aquarians, but that's where I'm at with this. Because when any 10 is reversed, generally what we have is some sort of block, some sort of obstacle, some sort of delay, right? If it represents the end when it's the correct way up, when it's inverted, it's how we're somehow missing that end, or we somehow have missed it. And I don't think it's because you need to cut loads of relationships out of your life. I think that there's some sort of transcendent quality to the way that you are trying to show up, right? Really vibing in that Aquarius energy that isn't yet merging properly with the emotional stuff inside that allows you to truly show yourself as you are, and allow yourself to be connected to exactly as you are. There's still a little bit too much of the furious mental energy around it. And we can see that here in your current energy because we've got the Fool reversed. There's also talking to a lot of people in my private community and also in personal readings and stuff about this feeling that we've all got, that the engine is in order, it's running beautifully, it's connected to the car's drive shaft, which is then connected to the axles. Like, everything is working beautifully, but we're missing the wheels that are allowing us to really fire forwards in the way that we want. There's a sticky energy at the moment where people can't quite head in the direction that they want. They can't quite initiate the new start that they want. They can't quite throw themselves into the void, as often the Fool that, well, it's a leap of faith and all that kind of thing, right? Throw themselves into their new cycle in the way that they would like. And this brings me back to the meditation that I did before I started your reading, where there were two motifs that repeated again and again and again, and they were gates and birds. And I think at this point, there's a really simple message in what I saw there. There's a resistance to going through the gates because there's some sort of evolution of you, some sort of transformation of you that is required first. And that the thinking furiously about it is possibly the thing that's causing this invisible force field that's stopping you being able to go through it. The emblem of the bird, the symbolism of the bird is rising above something. And I think at the moment the swords are keeping you a little bit trapped. The surrender that I was talking about was the need not to think about it too much, but to just be it and allow yourself to fly over the top of the gate, the fence, whatever it is. It was gates, it was very clearly gates. And always just merge with the new cycle rather than trying to overthink the fuck out of what the new cycle might be. Now we've got the King of Pentacles and the Six of Wands here, and I think that that's really interesting, because I'm sure in the last reading that I did for you, Aquarius, that what was coming through was a deep sense of responsibility for what happens next. You know, we all feel to some degree or another, you know, close to our sign, or like aligned to our sign. And if we're trying to do our work, we are absolutely trying to show up in the best way that we possibly can, in alignment with the higher qualities of whatever sign, you know, we're vibing with at that point. So, to talk about the Leo Aquarius axis again for a second, right? For Leo, it's about courage and bravery and standing up and you know, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. All of those, you know, really good Leo qualities, and trying to turn the dial down on some of the less agreeable Leo qualities that we have. But for you, like, because Pluto has moved into your sign, and we've had this absolute succession, you know, a big party in Aquarius with, you know, Mercury, and the moon was there, and Venus and Mars and whatnot. It seems to have given this amplitude to Aquarius energy, almost like building and building and firing you up. And it's more than just an alignment with the higher expressions of the sign. It seems to me that most Aquarians feel, like I was saying, this deep responsibility, not just to show up well as individuals, as humans, but to tap into something much, much bigger than themselves for the benefit of everyone else, right? It's the collective, humanity as a whole, right? Six of Wands is conspicuous public success. Interestingly enough, it is a Leo card. It's Jupiter in Leo, right? So we've got that expansive energy that is associated with Jupiter. But it's a desire to do good and to be seen to be doing good. It's an energy of really wanting to put yourself out there. And what I feel is there's a little bit of a resistance to entirely putting yourself out there. I mean, you're so comfortable in kind of going off and doing your own thing and loving humanity from a distance. And what's happening here is there's a fusion that's being asked to be created. And until such point as you can really open up everything that you are inside and connect to that bigger energy, both on the macro level, which is easy for you, but also on the micro level, in terms of the people that are closest to you, that are important to you. It's a balancing act, and it's one that I feel at this point, the issue that you specifically are having, Aquarius, is finding the way to balance the two, because you're feeling very fired up. Like I said, there's a big old engine and it's revving, it wants to go, but it doesn't have any wheels yet. Now, when we move into March, we've got the Four of Cups there, we've got the Knight of Swords, and then we've got this Three of Cups turning somewhat. Now, the interesting question would be, is this Three of Cups turning from, you know, a complete rejection of everything that the Three of Cups stands for, which would be emotional support networks and all that kind of stuff, right? The way that you show up in them, but also the way that you allow other people to support you within them. Is it going from there to an acceptance of that, or is it going from, that's what I've had around me and this is actually where it's going? It's difficult to tell at this point, but I would say it's probably the former rather than the latter. Generally speaking, fixed signs are not terribly good at allowing other people to be there for them, right? There's something built into that particular triplicity. Is that the right word? I think it might be the right word. That stops us asking for help. We are the help givers. We are the help bringers. We are the solution-oriented thinkers. We are indeed those that carry whatever season we find ourselves in, right? So Taurus carries the spring, Leo carries the summer, and so on and so forth. And it's quite interesting that Aquarius rules network, it rules the 11th house, which is to do with networks and groups of people, collectives of people, and that's something that you are very comfortable with, generally speaking. But it's this a little bit of resistance to the idea of bringing it directly to your door and taking it into yourself in a really meaningful way. Now, the Four of Cups, I often talk about this in terms of abandonment issues and things like that, and I think I would be absolutely remiss if I did not point out that a lot of Aquarians that I've met and read for and whatnot, and it seems to be part of the archetype, have at some point experienced something that could be described as abandonment issues that causes a predisposition towards detachment within Aquarius to really fire up in the same way that we see it with Scorpio. There's a predisposition towards being very guarded about themselves, which is often caused by some sort of childhood trauma, right? It sends the drawbridge up, but it does it harder and faster because there's a predisposition towards it than it would do in other signs who also experience that same thing. So, we need to take that into account. But this Knight of Swords, this Gemini energy, it feels like a really good one to have in the middle of this, right? Because if we take this Four of Cups to be abandonment issues, and maybe it's even a degree of boredom or apathy with people that are around you, and boredom and apathy might come from, I don't want to accuse you of being elitist because I don't think that is right, but there's a certain amount of mental what's the word that I'm looking for? Mental stimulation, generally, that you look for in people around you, and likely you surround yourself with people who can give you that, at least at points, if not consistently. But there's the dominance of the mind over the purer connection that sits underneath. I mean, you are given to be the genius of the zodiac, and for good reason. I mean, I think it was Steve Jobs who said that creativity was simply being able to draw a line between one point and another in a way that other people couldn't. And I think I remember being quite impressed with that when I read it, because I thought that's exactly what it is, right? It's that out-of-the-box thinking that makes you appear a little bit contrarian at times, makes one appear at least, but that in retrospect people can see the genius of how you've connected things in a way that other people wouldn't. But it feels to me like what's going on here is that you are looking for a way, without realizing that this is what you're doing at least, there's a synthesis that is asking to be brought forwards here. And the funny thing that is pushing up from behind as I am talking about this is the idea that, which is probably something that you're feeling quite hard at the moment, that you are part of the leadership going into this new era. Obviously, Pluto is an era-defining planet, and it's sitting in your sign. It does rather suggest that it's time for that. Interestingly enough, most of the people that run the planet at the moment were born around the time that Pluto was in Leo. So we've got a whole thing coming around, and there's a whole new guard that are coming up and challenging, opposing an older generation who have very fixed ideas about the way that the world should be. And here you are, and you're like, actually, let's blow all of that up. But there's one piece of the puzzle that's missing, and it seems to be the thing that's stopping you from being able to really throw yourself into this new cycle, and it's what's going on here. This Four of Cups, as I was saying, can also represent boredom and apathy. And I think sometimes Aquarians can be a little bit judgmental about people that cannot keep up with them intellectually, because of course you are the King of Swords. This is something that you prize. But it does feel a little bit like you're being asked to suspend that aspect of things while you find that place of connection with other people, while you take what is a macro position and draw it into yourself as the micro position. and allow people to be there with you. You know, I said the leadership thing feels like it's really quite strong, and that would be something that, you know, from a detached perspective, being detached would be a really good thing to be. But there's a changing going on here. And it means that you cannot simply be the Aquarius that you always have been, but here in the future where everything's, you know, lighting up and getting electrical and zuzzing around the place, you know, like Tesla's laboratory or something. It means that you have to grow into this role. You have to evolve into this role and be what humanity needs you to be moving forwards. I mean, it's interesting that we've got the sun in reverse here. It's another Leo card. It's incredibly positive, even when it shows up in the reverse, because it's that powerful. But it speaks of consciousness. It can sometimes speak of childhood, actually. And, you know, we could be harking back to wherever you find yourself now, unable to connect, stemming from childhood, but I'll leave that in your hands. But this consciousness idea is really interesting because it says that to complete the picture, it's the emotional consciousness rather than the mental consciousness that requires the work here. And every single interaction that you have on a daily basis, and this will be particularly true in March, is showing you where it's time to start letting your guard down. You know, the Nine of Wands often talks about boundaries, but it does at its heart talk about resilience. We've got this line of wands up here, and it's like, well, I'm not going to let anybody into this, except that the very thing that you need to level up, to step up into your new way of being, requires you to let people in. Recognize how your actions often sort of screen out worthy people who could be there for you, who could support you, who could absolutely help you start to set up the kind of communities that you would really enjoy. I mean, you might say, well, I just wish everybody was a little bit more King of Swords like I was, but that would make a very uneven and very unbalanced society. As we know, the magician, when we see him, he has all of the elements on the table, and the emphasis here is on what you do that pushes people away, where actually what happens is, what is needed here is that you draw people towards you. You know, they've got that Five of Wands there, another fucking Leo card. And also on the turn. And the Five of Wands is conflict and it's strife, and sometimes that can be outside of you. That can be people that you're in, you know, active disagreement with, active conflict. And some of the ways in which you might be, you know, in active conflict would be a slightly dismissive attitude to people who come at things in a very different way to you. But if you were to flip your mindset on that one, you'd see the true value of that, because not everybody can be an Aquarius, not everybody is supposed to be. But sometimes strife and conflict can be internal situations, right? And just like I was saying at the beginning, where, you know, there's a struggle before the chick breaks out of the egg. There's a struggle before, you know, the insect sheds its skin, or I'm thinking now, praying mantis, I think, or a snake. You know, any kind of big evolution requires you to leave a version of yourself behind, so that you can take something that is much more complete and bigger off in a different direction. And that often comes from a place of real discomfort. That's the thing that causes us to start trying to split ourselves open and come out. And for you, it's based absolutely in this emotional place, and how you have kind of guarded what is in there against other people. Maybe it isn't even guard, maybe it's just sectioned off because still you do not quite see the benefit of it. And what I like about this Knight of Swords, right, a card that talks about the transmission of information for me is it's saying, if you can think about how this plays out in your life over the course of March, right, what you're doing is opening up pathways in your brain that have not been exposed to sunlight for a while, right? They've got a bit dark and dusty and whatever. And this point of connection on the macro can be brought in to the micro, allowing you to show up like this at a place where you can respect people for what they bring to the table, which is so very different to what you bring to the table. There's an acceptance here. There's an acceptance that is required. I mean, you notice here, you know, he's trying to juggle these pentacles, juggling the responsibility, working really, really hard, possibly, to try and bring that Aquarian energy through. But it feels like it's more a case of stopping yourself from resisting the balancing aspect here. You will always default to the mind. You will always default to thinking your way through things. But it's the heart that's asking to be exercised here. It's vulnerability that it's asking you to consider the possibility of. Like I said, you know, that this here, this position that you've been holding for quite a long time, and whilst it's very impressive, it's very static. There's not much that can be done with it. It's made you very strong. But the whole of March is about learning to allow other people to fill your cup. I mean, in the way that you probably find it very easy to fill other people's cups, because you have such a different perspective on things, right? Surrender to allow other people to start filling your cup, filling your heart. Give the mind a rest for a little bit, Aquarius. As a lot of Aquarians thinking furiously about how do I bring all of this big energy through into this dimension, into this 3D plane, and really, really struggling with it. The cups are all about passive energy. It's don't resist, it's flow with it. It's allow everything to come through and allow people to start helping you, not in a, you know, coming and lumping stuff around you flat kind of way, but just be open to the emotional experience. Accept everybody for who they are without judgment, and see where those relationships can take you if you surrender to them. Honestly, I know I use this example a lot, but I feel like it's just fucking genius for how it's like when the three kids in Harry Potter are going down to the Chamber of Secrets, you know, and all three of them drop into that. There was that hogweed or something. And the more they struggle, the tighter everything gets. And, you know, the lesson they discover as Hermione just goes straight through and out the other side is to surrender, is to relax, is to be peaceful. Like, I'm not saying that there isn't a great deal of responsibility here for you, Aquarius, but what I'm saying is it needs to be balanced out. You need to stop fighting your way to the gate to try and express that very active mental energy outwards. Surrender to it and actually allow the gate to come to you. That's your evolution. That's what makes you worthy of the Fool being in the reverse. This is actually where you need strengthening up. This is very interesting. I'm going to go over to the extended now and look at that, because I feel like there's a corner getting ready to be turned for you. But it's all in the peace of the moment. It's all in the surrender. It's all in allowing it to wash over you. and letting the tide take you where you need to be. Like, that in and of itself would be such a shift in your mindset. And very interesting. Right, like I said, I'm going to go to the extended. You can join me on Vimeo or you can join me over on Circle. It's entirely up to you. If neither of those are particularly of interest to you, that's cool. But I would pay attention to where you're resisting and practice over the course of March the idea of surrendering to. Because I think there's a new level of creativity that's starting to surface, and I think your mind will be all over it when it comes up. But first, you have to let go of what has been you and your old experience before, which is intriguing. So, know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.